You may not know this about me, but I am actually a huge biology, natural sciences nerd. Lots of people probably think that because I am a blogger or writer, a photographer, an Instagram coach, lots of creative things, that I would have some sort of degree in a creative field, but that's actually not the case at all. I have a bachelor's in biology, of all things. I know. I absolutely love biology. I love natural sciences, and I'm not talking about medical biology. I'm talking about fun biology, at least in my opinion, which is more like botany, animal behavior, ecology, evolution theory, all that sort of nerdy nonsense. That's what I'm about. So this list was particularly fun for me because I got to sort of flex that muscle again for the first time in quite a while. And it was just really fun to put together this list for you. I hope you enjoy it. It's really designed whether you already are a nature lover or you're someone who hasn't really fallen in love with the natural world as of yet, but I'm telling you, one of these books is going to do it for you. I swear all it takes is just a little taste of how crazy and wonderful and miraculous the world around us is. And frankly, I find a lot of ties to fiction in this sort of science nonfiction. The wonders of the world are stranger than fiction in a lot of ways. I've always found it so fun. So whether you're a hiker, you're someone who's interested in science, you just love the outdoors, you love plants, whatever, I hope you enjoy this list. Let's go ahead and dive on in. The first two selections are actually from the same author. One is called Wicked Bugs and one is called Wicked Plants. These books are so easy to recommend for people who are just sort of stepping into this whole world, arena, whatever you want to call it, because they're so approachable and they're just really fun to read. They're like part scientific, part anecdotal, and you're just going to be filled with so many fun random facts about these things that you're going to want to bring them up at dinner parties and just brag about your cool nerdiness, okay? It's awesome. I just grabbed them off my bookshelf so I could show you. So this is Wicked Bugs. The subtitle is The Louse That Conquered Napoleon's Army and Other Diabolical Insects. And it is littered throughout with these gorgeous, lovely illustrations, maybe not if you hate bugs, from this really talented illustrator. They're much prettier in Wicked Plants. Obviously, it's not so scary and grisly for people. And I personally am like a big botany person. I freaking love plants. And this is a really great read to start with. The reason I think these are so approachable is because the sections within them are so short, and because Amy Stewart writes in this really fun way. It doesn't feel like a science book. It just feels like a cool book of cool stories about things you didn't know about. So I hope that you will check one of those out if you haven't already. She's really, really talented, and they're fairly quick, short, little just cool books to have around and to flip through whether or not you read them as a whole, which I did, but you don't have to. Fun quick story about Wicked Plants. I had an incredible ethnobotany professor in university, and ethnobotany, because no one ever knows what I'm talking about, is basically the combination of plants and humans, how we work together, how we affect one another, and therefore it's just a very cool class. It's like talking about how we've used plants throughout the ages, and our professor was just the coolest freaking dude. And unfortunately he passed away mid-semester, and I'm still mad about it, to be honest, because he was just so epic and he had the coolest stories and he'd gone on the coolest adventures. He let us all do I can't think of it, like blow darts, like poison darts. I can't think of it, honestly. I hate it when my mind does this, but he was just a cool guy. This book was actually on his textbook list, and this book obviously isn't a textbook at all, and that just goes to show you what a cool person he was. He wanted his students to understand the power of plants, something we often underestimate, but plants are all around you, and you don't really realize all the wonderful things that they can do, and this is just a great book to first sort of like whet your palate on that. Next is a really cool book I don't think most people know about. It's called Life Above the Jungle Floor. Let me explain the rainforest to you, which I don't even need to, because the rainforest has always been a source of mystery and myth and lore for man. I mean, it's something that has obsessed us for at least hundreds of years that we know of. I mean, think about all the legends and stories that have come from the forest, like Tarzan, the list goes on and on. So for years, people had been studying the soil, like what you could see at your own height, like human height. No one ever really got to the tops of these incredibly tall tropical jungle trees. It had never been done before. And what this guy discovered, he was the first to go up there. What he discovered was an incredible world, almost like a micro ecosystem of its own that supported itself within a larger structure, just completely fantastic. And this book is sort of part adventure story, part scientific study, so really fun if you're sort of like a survivalist person who's just interested in the more adventure aspect stories. But he was the first guy to be able to study the tops of trees and the unique world that's going on there, and I think that this book deserves to be more well remembered. The New York Times book review actually called the scientist who discovered all this the Jacques Cousteau of the rainforest, which is a pretty cool honor. Next is the Bedtime Book of Beasts by Graham Gibson. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, sorry about that, bro. But he is the author of the Bedside Book of Birds as well, which I haven't read, but this is the Bedside Book of Beasts, and it's basically man versus beast, predator versus prey, and it's a miscellany, and it really lives up to that title. It's everything. It's journal entries, diary entries, letters, poems, local legends, and lore. It's full and covered of these gorgeous illustrations. Actually, let me go grab it really quick so I can show you. So here it is, a very cool cover. You can tell right off the bat, and I just want to say this is a more expensive, very high quality crafted book that is not only composed really well of like everything that's in there, but the paper, the binding, it's all like, it's top notch, dude. So it's just a nice quality book to have on your shelves. And it took me a couple years to read this because I kind of just put it on my bedside and then took it as it came. It's really, really fun. It makes you consider the place of animals in our world, our history with them, our place within the world, and it's just really good fun to read if you like history and adventure stories, lore, myth, all that good stuff. Now I want to talk about two books that I've mentioned fairly recently, but I still just think they're really relevant for this video, so I hope you'll forgive me, but I'll make it quick. The first of those is Deep, Freediving, Renegade Science, and What the Ocean Tells Us About Ourselves. I think I've included this on a few lists now, but really I'm just trying to peer pressure you into reading this because I think it is that good. James Nestor is a journalist, and he actually started this whole adventure by looking at a freediving competition, which actually really freaked him out. They were doing things he didn't know the human body was capable of doing at all, let alone in the water, let alone in the ocean. So it kind of sparked an interest in him, and he takes us with him as he's going on this journey of looking at the ocean, looking at our connection to it, our history with it, the changes our body makes when it goes into the water inherently, which is pretty fascinating stuff. It's sort of like a travel diary, sort of a scientific study. It's just a really good book. It's great on audiobook, and I truly hope that you'll listen to it one of these days. The next of those that's been fairly recent read of mine is Underground by Will Hunt, who does what very few people have done and takes a look at the underground world, the hidden world beneath our feet. I swear after you read this, you're never gonna look at the sidewalk beneath you the same way again. You're never gonna look at a subway tunnel the same way again. It is so chock full of really cool stories about man's intrinsic and habitual pull to the underground, and it's definitely going to make you think about these topics in a way you haven't before. He travels all over the world exploring this sort of phenomenon. It gets a little bit into myth and mysticism and spirituality, and I just think it's a really fun read. My dad is reading it right now and taking forever, so Dad, if you're watching this, would you hurry up so we can talk about it? Anyways though, let's get to the next ones. Let me ask you this. What did you dream of doing when you were a little kid? Like, what were your first ideals of what you wanted your career to be? For me, I wanted to be Jane Goodall. I wanted to study chimps. I was completely obsessed with primate animal behavior, communication, and just in love with the whole thing. And I would actually look for books on this in my local library, and I remember particularly finding this book on the lower shelf and just falling in love with it, and it has been a book that's incredibly memorable to me, something that has always stuck in the back of my mind. It is Next of Kin. This is a book about a team of scientists who tried to teach a chimpanzee Washoe how to communicate with sign language. And it starts there, and it really goes into his career as a scientist with Washoe, who when he really started out, he didn't really know what he was doing. No one had ever really done this before. It was a very burgeoning field, and it's just a fascinating glimpse into some of our closest animal relatives. and how we connect with them. Another book that I hope you'll let me indulge on as far as primate behavior is Jane Goodall's Through a Window. Jane Goodall is a marvel of a woman. If there ever was one, she is so freaking cool. She just went out there and decided to basically kind of live and just study and observe chimpanzees, and she just reported her findings. A naturalist, if there ever was one. There's some really cool stories in there. It's harrowing and heartbreaking and just a really phenomenal book, and I hope you'll read it. She has written several other books. I've never read them. This is the only one that I've read, and it's been a very long time. So if you're at all interested in chimpanzee or primate behavior, then definitely look at Through a Window by Jane Goodall and Next of Kin. Really fantastic. Next up is The Naked Ape by Desmond Morris. This is another book that was a library find for me. I found it when I was at university. I found it just on a shelf randomly. I didn't even think I was looking for anything. I was just sort of stumbling through the biology and natural sciences section and picked it up and was completely hooked. Now, this is a really controversial work, okay? And I'm not saying I agree with everything, and I'm sure you won't either, but a lot of what he has to say is really, really fascinating, and at the very least will be extremely thought-provoking for you. If you're at all interested in the origin of man, anthropology, that sort of thing, this will be a really fun read for you. To try to explain this book and the premise of it, I guess, is probably the best way to say it is I have this friend who's quirky in all the best ways. I adore her. And through one of her many numerous coffee shop chats, she said to me, I think we're a lot more ape than we like to admit. And that's always stuck with me, and I think it is so true. Sometimes just parts of our chemical makeup and our behavior is just animalistic, and I think we like to sort of put ourselves on, I don't know, not a high horse, but we definitely elevate ourselves because we're human and we are without a doubt the most intelligent and superior species on the planet. But in doing so, I think we kind of like to forget that we are also animals, and this is sort of a book that immortalizes that in a lot of ways. So in The Naked Ape, Desmond Morris is talking about the origins of man in a more animalistic sense, as us ascending from some sort of ape-like creature. He's talking a lot about evolutionary theory and how that pervades in our behavior today. In my opinion, great stuff. I freaking love that topic in general, so it was a really fun read for me. This is probably like the nerdiest video I have ever made, and I'm just kind of realizing it now how nerdy this is. So I hope you're still with me. I know it's probably not for everyone, but if you're interested in the natural sciences, then I hope you're having fun, because I am. These are really good books. And I'm actually including, I think, 2 that I haven't read but are on my list, and the next one is one of those. It is Reading the Rocks. I freaking love geology, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Geology rocks, man. It does. And I'm still looking for a t-shirt that says that. Here's the thing about geology, the study of rocks, right? Rocks are all around you, okay? Like, it's, you know that, but you don't think about it. There's sort of things that we know are there, but it's sort of just background scenery. Most people don't stop to think about the story behind them. In this book, the author is sort of sharing the autobiography of the natural world. The thing that's so magical about geology is that it is the study, it is the story of our world. It is the base, it is the whole, and it tells a story all of its own, and I think that in itself is really addicting about the entire field. I very strongly considered getting a master's in geology. I loved it. Unfortunately though, very few books do the topic justice. I feel like they make it really boring or really dry, and you have to have like a great teacher to sort of open your eyes to the entire field, which luckily I did. I loved my geology professor. He was so cool and just really encouraging, and he made it fun. He made it approachable. He made it relatable in a lot of ways to just you and me, and not just something that happened a bazillion years ago. Bazillion is not an accurate number, by the way. But it sounds like this book is a really great start if you're at all interested in geology and the story it tells. If so, I hope you'll enjoy it. Next and last is The Wonder of Birds, what they tell us about the world, ourselves, and a better future. If you thought that we could make it this entire video without me talking about birds in some degree, then you're crazy. I thought we knew each other better than that. Anyone who watches my Instagram stories knows that I love bird watching. It's sort of like an unofficial, not very serious hobby of mine. It's just something that makes me happy. And the reason for that is kind of fictional in itself, or at least it ties to fiction for me. Do you remember when you were a kid and you would love stories like The Borrowers, where there was an entire world going on in tandem with your own, but that you didn't know about, that was kind of secret and hidden? That to me is what birds are like. They are so complex. Lots of them are very intelligent. They have their own unique social structures and habits and hierarchies. And it's kind of like a magical world in another language just going on outside your window all the time. And to me, there's something really mesmerizing about that. I truly think it just takes one good ornithology experience to get yourself hooked on it. Something that changes your perspective about it and just gets you paying more attention to the world around you. And to me, that's the beauty of the natural sciences. A fact of life is that you are walking through this world, my friend. And I think it's so cool and special just to learn more about it. It's kind of like learning more about your parents and where they came from. I mean, this is our narrative as a human species. And I'm sorry to get so deep there, but I really think that that's true. It's why I loved the field so much and spent 4 years poring over extremely nerdy scientific texts to learn more about it. That concludes our list of 11 books for nature lovers. I hope that whether or not you're an experienced nature lover or you're just sort of dipping your toe in, that one of these books is going to be really enjoyable and fun for you to read, open your eyes, make you look at the world in a different way. To me, that's what reading's all about, and I hope you have a heck of a lot of nerdy fun checking one of these reads out. If you have any similar reads for me that you think I would love, please let me know. I don't often read much in this genre anymore because I feel like in some ways that phase of my life is over, or at least the studying part of it is over. It's never going to be out of my heart, but certainly the researching bit has sort of left me as I've left university years ago and just moving on to other things. So if you have a book that you think will rekindle my attention to that more than just me walking around and taking it in and being a nerd, I'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much for watching, hanging out, being a nerd with me. If you like this video, do me a favor, give it a quick thumbs up, drop me a comment below. And if you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, but you like all things bookish, book reviews, book hauls, TBRs, all the good bookish stuff, then I'm your girl. So go ahead and press that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.